The Wager and the Widow. The marketplace was alive with noise and color. Stalls stretched across the wide stone streets, filled with strange food, glittering tools and objects that came from distant stars. Humans walked side by side with aliens of many shapes, tall ones with scaled skin, short ones with shining eyes, and creatures that moved with too many legs. Everyone was busy with trade, arguments, or bargains that could change a life. In the middle of it all stood a man named Kale. He was known among both humans and aliens as a gambler who never turned down a wager. If someone dared him to risk his money, his pride, or even his life, he would not step back. That night was no different. Inside a crowded auction hall, Kyle leaned against a pillar, a half-smile resting on his lips. He had already won small games earlier, cards, dice, and bets on fights between alien creatures. His luck was steady, and he was enjoying the night. But then the room grew quiet. The auction master, a tall alien with silver skin, raised his hands. "The next prize," he announced, his voice echoing through the chamber, "is not an object, not a weapon, not land. Tonight we present the Widow of Saranth." The hall filled with whispers. The name alone carried a weight Kale could not yet understand. Some men shifted in their seats uncomfortably. Some women shook their heads. A few even left the room. But Kyle stayed curious. From behind the curtains, a figure stepped forward. She was tall, her steps calm and graceful. She wore a simple black garment, yet it seemed to carry power on its own. Her skin was pale, with faint silver patterns that looked almost like stars. Her eyes were deep and unreadable, shining faintly in the dim light. Kyle watched her with interest. There was beauty in her face, yes, but there was also something unsettling, the kind of beauty that could not be easily trusted. "She is bound by the ancient laws of Saranth," the auction master continued. "Once claimed, she must remain with the one who wins her. But beware, many before have tried. None kept her for long." Laughter rose from some of the men in the room, but it was nervous laughter. No one raised a hand to bid. It was as if they feared not the price, but the prize itself. Kale felt a thrill in his chest. He could not resist what others avoided. It was in his nature to take what was called dangerous, to win what others thought untouchable. He stepped forward with a grin. "I will claim her," he said. His voice carried across the room. The crowd turned to look at him. Some faces showed pity, others quiet fear. The auction master raised an eyebrow. "A wager, then? Do you claim her in jest, human?" Kale shrugged. "A bet is a bet. I do not step back." Coins were exchanged, names written down. The ritual was completed quickly, as if the auction master wanted it done before Kale could change his mind. But Kale did not change his mind. The alien widow was led down the steps. She stood in front of him, silent, her eyes fixed on his. Kale met her gaze, but the longer he looked, the more he felt as though she was looking through him, past his skin, past his bones, deep into the part of him that even he did not like to face. Still, he did not move. He offered a hand. "Well then, Widow of Saranth, it seems you belong to me now." She did not take his hand. Instead, she spoke, her voice low and steady. "You are bold, or you are foolish. Perhaps both. Do you know what you have taken?" Kale smirked. "A wager won is a wager kept. That is all that matters." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Then remember this moment, for it will cost you more than you think." The people around them avoided her gaze. Some shook their heads, muttering under their breath. One older alien leaned toward Kyle as he passed and whispered, "Walk away now, human. Walk away while you still can." But Kale only laughed. "What is life without a little danger?" he said. As he led her out of the hall, he felt many eyes on his back. Some eyes held pity, others disbelief, and a few seemed almost eager, as if they wanted to watch him fall. But Kale was used to this. People always doubted him, and he always proved them wrong. Yet when the night air touched them, and the noise of the marketplace grew distant, he noticed something strange. The Widow of Saranth walked without sound. Her feet touched the stone, but no echo followed. Even the air around her felt colder, heavier, like a storm waiting far away but still creeping closer. Kyle kept his grin, but inside he felt the first drop of unease. It was not fear, not yet, but something close. The widow did not speak again. She walked beside him, silent as the night itself. But Kale could not shake the thought that for the first time in his life, he had placed a wager he might not truly understand. And the crowd's whispers echoed in his mind. Many before have tried. None kept her for long. Whispers of her past. Kale did not sleep well that night. He had taken the alien widow from the auction hall to the small quarters he rented above a tavern. The room was plain, a bed, a table, and a single oil lamp flickering against the walls. Kale had expected to drink himself into sleep, as he often did after a victory, but the air in the room felt too heavy. The widow sat quietly by the window, her eyes fixed on the dark streets below. She had not asked for food, nor water, nor comfort. She did not speak unless spoken to. She only sat there, her posture straight, her face calm, like a statue that could breathe. Kale lay on the bed, pretending to ignore her, but he felt her presence like a weight on his chest. Every time the lamp flickered, her shadow stretched long across the wall, shifting in strange shapes that did not match her body. Finally, he broke the silence. "What do they call you besides Widow of Sarenth?" She turned her head slowly, her silver-marked eyes meeting his. "Names are for the living," she said. Her words made the room colder. Kale forced a smile. "Then what should I call you? It feels strange to share a room with someone and have no name to speak." She paused as if the question itself was heavy. Then she answered softly, "They once called me Elira." Kale repeated the name under his breath. It was sharp but elegant, carrying a strange echo as though it did not belong fully in human speech. "Elira," he said aloud. "A strong name." Her gaze did not soften. "It is not strong. It is cursed." Kale laughed, though unease tugged at him. Curses are for children's tales. But even as he spoke, he noticed movement outside the window. In the street below, 2 traders walked by, speaking in hushed voices. Kale leaned to listen, for their whispers carried upward through the night air. "Poor fool," one of them muttered. "Another human who thinks bravery will keep him alive." "The widow of Saranth has buried more men than years she has lived," the other replied. "If he is lucky, he will not see the morning." Kyle frowned, sitting up. "What are they talking about?" he asked Elira. She did not answer. Her eyes returned to the window as if she had already heard these whispers 1,000 times. "Tell me," Kale pressed, "why do they fear you?" Her silence stretched until it became unbearable. At last she whispered, "Because they know what I carry." Kale waited, but she did not continue. That night, when he finally drifted into sleep, he dreamed. But the dream was not his own. He stood on a battlefield beneath a sky torn apart by fire. He saw alien soldiers locked in endless combat. He smelled blood and smoke. He felt pain in his chest as if a blade had already pierced him. And in the distance he saw her. Elira. She stood among the dead, untouched, her black garment whipping in the wind. Her eyes glowed like molten silver. She did not fight, but the battle bent around her as though she carried death itself in her shadow. Kale woke with a start, sweat running down his face. Elira was still by the window, her gaze steady on him. It was as if she had been waiting. "You saw?" she said. Kale swallowed. "Saw what?" "Fragments," she replied. "Memories that are not yours. They come to those who stand too close to me. They always come." Kale forced himself to laugh, though his voice shook. "So what, your secret is that you give bad dreams?" "That does not scare me." But his words rang hollow, even to himself. The next day, as they walked through the market, Kale noticed how others reacted to Elira. Some stepped aside quickly, avoiding her path. Others made signs with their hands, gestures of protection. Children hid behind their parents. No one dared speak to her. Kale's pride wanted to shout at them, to tell them they were cowards. But a small part of him, the part that still remembered the battlefield in his dream, kept him silent. At a spice stall, the vendor leaned close to Kale when Elira turned away. "You should let her go," the man whispered. "Before she marks you. Before her curse finds its way into your blood." Kale's jaw tightened. "Her curse?" The vendor nodded quickly, his eyes wide. "She carries the death of her people. A widow not by choice, but by fate. Her husbands do not live long. None ever have." Kale glanced at Elira. She stood a few paces away, her posture still and quiet, as though she had heard every word. That night, Kale confronted her. "They speak of curses. They say your husbands die. Is it true?" Elira's face was unreadable. For a long moment she gave no reply. Then she whispered, "Truth is heavier than lies. You do not want to carry it." Kale stepped closer. "Tell me anyway." Her eyes lifted, locking with his. Yes, they die. All of them. And their deaths are not simple. They are not clean. They carry pieces of me when they go. Pieces that no human should ever hold. A chill ran through Cale's spine, but he forced himself to stand tall. Then maybe I am not like the others. Maybe I can hold what they could not. For the first time, Elira's expression shifted. Not anger, not sadness, something stranger. Almost pity. You think strength will save you, she said softly. But strength is what destroys men when they stand beside me. Cale had no answer. Her words echoed in his chest, mixing with the whispers of the market and the visions of his dream. He had claimed her in a wager, thinking it was only another risk. But now, for the first time, he wondered if he had placed a bet he could never win. The bond and the warning days passed, but Cale found that life with Elira was never ordinary. She never asked for anything, yet her presence changed everything. The tavern owner who rented Cale his room stopped smiling when Elira entered. The serving girls no longer laughed when Cale told his jokes. Their eyes stayed low, their steps quick, as if they feared even brushing against the widow's shadow. Cale noticed the silence that followed them wherever they went. In the marketplace, the loudest voices softened when she walked past. Bargains ended quickly, buyers scattered, and even the boldest merchants kept their distance. It was as if Elira carried an invisible barrier around her, a circle no one dared to cross. At first, Cale enjoyed the effect. He had always wanted to be noticed, to command attention, but soon the weight of it grew heavy. It was not respect. It was fear. And fear spread faster than any rumor. One evening, as they returned to their room, Cale felt a strange sting on his arm. When he pulled back his sleeve, he saw a mark on his skin. It was faint, glowing like silver under the lamplight. The lines curled in patterns almost identical to the markings that decorated Elira's pale skin. He froze. What is this? Elira glanced at the mark, her expression unchanged. It begins, she whispered. What begins? Cale demanded, though his voice carried more fear than anger. The bond, she replied softly. It was sealed the moment you claimed me. My bloodline does not belong to itself. Whoever takes me takes more than flesh. They take the shadow I carry. And the shadow always leaves its mark. Cale stepped back, shaking his head. No, this is just some trick. Some alien magic. Not magic, Elira said calmly. Memory, burden, curse, call it what you wish. But it is now yours as much as mine. Her words cut deeper than any blade. For the first time in years, Cale felt truly out of control. Bets and wagers had always been his strength. No matter the risk, he could charm his way out or fight or cheat if he had to. But this mark on his skin was not something he could outwit. That night, Cale dreamed again. This time the vision was clearer. He stood on a burning plain where alien armies clashed, their weapons scorching the sky. In the midst of the chaos, Elira appeared, her face calm as ever, her eyes glowing with sorrow. She walked among the dead, and everywhere her shadow touched, soldiers fell lifeless. When Cale woke, he felt the sting on his arm again. The mark had grown brighter. Elira sat by the window as always, but now her eyes followed him with quiet care. You should walk away, she said. While you still can. Cale rubbed his arm. You told me that before, but why? Why warn me if it is already too late? Because men before you ignored the warning, she answered. And none lived to regret it. I would rather you live with anger than die with silence. Cale sat heavily on the bed. For once he could not laugh, could not play the fearless man. And if I stay? Her eyes held his, steady and unblinking. Then you must understand. You are not just beside me, you are inside the curse. It does not kill quickly. It twists, it breaks. It makes you see what should not be seen. Until you are no longer yourself. Her voice was calm, but Cale heard pain beneath it. Not the sharp pain of anger, but the slow ache of someone who had spoken the same words too many times before, and watched the same ending again and again. Yet something in Cale's pride rose against her warning. He leaned forward, his voice firm. Maybe they were weak. Maybe they were fools. But I am not them. For the first time since the auction, Elira's expression changed. A shadow of sadness passed over her face. That is what they all said, she whispered. The days that followed pressed harder on Cale. The mark on his arm spread slowly, curling across his skin like a vine of silver fire. At night, the dreams returned, sharper each time. He saw battles he had never fought, deaths he had never caused. He smelled blood that was not his, felt wounds that did not belong to him. And yet in the midst of it, Elira showed moments of strange kindness. When Kale stumbled, weakened by the visions, she steadied him. When a fight broke out in the tavern, she moved like lightning, pulling him back before a blade could strike. Her presence was both poison and shield, danger and protection all at once. One evening, Kyle confronted her again. "If this bond is so deadly, why save me? Why not let me fall like the others?" Elira looked at him, her silver-marked eyes shining faintly in the lamplight. "Because you still fight, and I do not know if that will save you or destroy you faster." Her words haunted him. That night, as he lay awake, Kyle realized something he had not dared to admit. He was no longer thinking of Elira as a prize he had won, or a curse he wanted to escape. He was thinking of her as someone bound to him, as tightly as his own shadow. And deep inside, a part of him whispered the most dangerous thought of all. Perhaps he did not want to let her go. The secret revealed Kale had thought the whispers were only words, the dreams only tricks of the mind. But when the mark on his arm spread across his shoulder and glowed brighter each night, he knew the truth could not be avoided any longer. The city was changing for him too. People no longer looked at him with the usual mix of envy and annoyance reserved for gamblers. Now they looked with pity. Some even crossed the street when he passed, muttering prayers in their own alien tongues. And always beside him walked Elira, calm and silent, her presence both beautiful and terrifying. Kale's patience cracked one night when the visions returned more violently than before. He saw himself standing on a broken world, the sky split in half by storms of fire. He saw thousands of soldiers, human and alien alike, screaming as shadows poured into their bodies, turning them to ash. And in the center of it all stood Elira, her hands outstretched as if the destruction flowed through her veins. Kale woke gasping, his chest burning as if the fire had touched him for real. The silver marks on his skin now formed sharp, unfamiliar symbols. He turned to Elira, who sat at the window, her face pale but steady. "Enough," he said. His voice was rough, almost breaking. "Tell me everything. No more warnings. No more riddles. I want the truth." For a long time she said nothing. Then she rose and walked to him. The lamplight caught her silver markings, and for the first time, Kale noticed they pulsed faintly, like veins filled with light. "You wish to know," she said softly. "Then know this, I am not simply a widow. I am the vessel of my people's memory. The last of Saranth." Kale frowned, confused. "Memory?" She nodded slowly. "When Saranth fell, when our worlds burned and our armies died, our elders gave one final command. They poured the history, the pain, the battles, the deaths, all of it into me. I carry it still. Every life lost, every scream, every wound, I am their living tomb." Her voice was calm, but her eyes flickered with pain. Kyle shook his head. "That's impossible. No one can carry that much. No one should," Elira whispered. "But it was the will of my people. So long as I live, Saranth is not forgotten. But the burden is more than memory. It seeks release. It looks for someone to share it with. And when I am bound, when a man claims me, the curse begins. The bond passes pieces of it into him, and the weight of Saranth is enough to crush any soul." Kale felt his stomach twist. "That's why the others died." "Yes," she said. "One by one they took on the shadows. At first they thought they were strong enough. At first they all said what you said, that they were not like the others. But the shadow eats pride as easily as it eats flesh, and when they broke, they did not just die. They became part of the memory inside me." Her hand lifted slowly, resting over her heart. "I carry them still. Not only my people. The men who thought they could hold me. Their faces are here. Their voices are here. They never leave." Kyle stared at her, horrified and fascinated all at once. The mark on his arm throbbed as though it understood every word. "So I am cursed already," he said. Elira nodded. "The moment you spoke in that hall, the moment you claimed me, it was sealed. The bond cannot be broken." Kale rose to his feet, pacing the small room. His pride wanted to scream, to deny, to say he would not be taken like the others. But another part of him, the part that had felt the fire in his dreams, that had seen the death in her shadow, knew she was not lying. He stopped and faced her. "Why warn me then? Why try to save me from blades, from fights, if I am doomed anyway?" Her expression softened in a way he had never seen. "Because you still fight." The others surrendered quickly. They tried to drown the visions in drink and fear and anger. But you stand and demand answers. Perhaps it will not save you. Perhaps it will only make your end slower, but it makes you different. Kyle's chest tightened. For the first time, he realized Elira was not only a carrier of death. She was also a prisoner. She had lived through centuries of watching men fall, watching their faces added to the endless grave inside her. Every warning she gave was not cruelty, it was mercy. But Cale could not step back. He had never stepped back from a wager in his life. He moved closer, his voice firm. Then if the curse is mine, I will bear it. I will not run. Her eyes widened slightly, then narrowed as if in pain. Do not say that, she whispered. The curse loves pride. It will use it to break you faster. Kyle's jaw set. Or it will bend. And for once it will lose. Silence filled the room. Elira stared at him for a long moment, then looked away, her voice barely audible. If you endure, Cale, then you will become something no human has ever been. The lamplight flickered again. Shadows swirled across the walls, stretching and curling like hands reaching for them both. The marks on Kyle's skin glowed brighter, as if the curse itself was listening. Kyle did not flinch. For the first time, he looked into the darkness and did not look away. The choice and the change. The nights grew longer. Kyle no longer counted days. Each sunrise came with heavier marks on his skin. Each sunset brought visions that tore at his mind. Sometimes he would wake with the taste of blood in his mouth, though no wound marked him. Sometimes he would stand before the mirror and see not his own reflection, but the faces of men he had never known. Men Elira had spoken of. The ones who had claimed her before and failed. They whispered to him. Their voices blended with the roar of battles long past. Their words clawed into his thoughts. We were stronger. We were braver. We still broke, and so will you. Cale tried to fight them. At first he laughed them off, as he had laughed at every challenge in his life. But laughter turned to silence. Silence turned to rage. And rage, too, began to fade into something colder. Doubt. Elira watched all of this with quiet eyes. She did not try to stop the visions, for she could not. But she stayed near, guiding him when he stumbled, steadying him when he almost lost himself. One night, as Cale lay gasping after a vision of entire cities falling into fire, Elira spoke. Her voice was softer than the whisper of the lamp flame. You are close to the breaking point, she said. Cale forced a bitter smile. Do you want me to give up? To join the others inside you? Her expression twisted with pain. No, I do not want another face in my memory. I do not want another voice screaming in the dark. I have carried enough. Cale turned to look at her. For the first time he saw her not as the widow, not as the cursed vessel, but as a woman who had carried centuries of sorrow alone. She was as much a prisoner as he was. Then tell me, Cale whispered, is there any way through? Not escape, not release, but a way to stand and survive it? Elira hesitated. Her silver eyes shone in the dim light. If there is, no one has ever found it. The curse is not meant to be endured. It is meant to consume. Cale sat up, his body trembling, his arm glowing with the spreading marks. Then let me be the first. She looked at him, almost pleading. Why not run? Why not free yourself while you still have breath? Cale's voice hardened. Because I never run. A wager taken is a wager kept, and this is the greatest wager of my life. The words settled between them, heavy as stone. Elira closed her eyes as if bracing herself for what was to come. That night, the vision struck harder than ever. Cale saw the full collapse of Saranth, worlds burning, skies splitting, oceans rising to swallow whole cities. He felt the death of millions pouring through him, their screams echoing inside his bones. His body shook, his breath failed. But he did not fall. Instead, he stood inside the vision, screaming back against it. He faced the tide of shadows, the endless dead, the pain of centuries. His pride alone was not enough. It broke and shattered like glass. But beneath it, deeper than pride, was something else. The stubborn will of a human heart that refused to yield. The curse raged, twisting his flesh, burning his veins with silver fire. Yet Kyle did not let go. He clung to himself with iron hands. He clung to Elira's voice, faint but steady, calling his name through the storm. Hours, or perhaps lifetimes, passed before the vision broke. When Cale opened his eyes, dawn was breaking through the window. His body ached, his skin burned, but he was alive. The marks that had once glowed angrily now shimmered faintly, calm like embers after a fire. Elira knelt beside him, her hands trembling. For the first time he saw tears on her face. You endured, she whispered. Kyle's voice was rough, barely a breath. I told you. I'm not like the others. Her tears fell onto his hand, glowing faintly as they touched his skin. No, she said. You are not. The curse bends to you. It listens. You have done what none before could. Silence filled the room, broken only by the faint sound of mourning in the city below. Kale sat up slowly, every muscle screaming, but inside he felt something new. Strength, sharper and clearer than before. The shadows had not vanished, but they no longer controlled him. They were part of him now, woven into his blood, his thoughts, his very being. Elira looked at him with something he had never seen in her eyes before. Hope. Perhaps, she whispered, the curse is not only a death. Perhaps it is also a bridge. Between Saranth and humanity, between memory and survival. Kale reached out, taking her hand firmly. For the first time she did not resist. Then we carry it together, he said. Her eyes closed and she leaned against him, her voice breaking. Together. Outside the sun rose higher, painting the sky in gold. The people of the city would whisper again when they saw Kale and the alien widow walking side by side. Some would say he was doomed, that no man could resist her fate forever. But for now, Kale knew the truth. He had taken a wager no one else dared, and he had not broken. He had changed. And in that change, he had changed her too. The widow of Saranth was no longer alone, and Kale, the reckless gambler, had become something more than human. A man who carried the weight of a world and still stood unbroken.